Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. The rapid modernization happening within China's core banking systems.
That's right. We're going to explore what's really driving this massive transformation and, get to grips with the key domestic players who are essentially reshaping the foundation of banking there. It's one of the world's most digitally advanced economies.
Definitely. And we've pulled this together from, well, market analyses, company announcements, industry observations, trying to get the real core of what's going on.
Exactly. And I think what's crucial to grasp right away is just the incredible scale and speed of digital life in China.
Oh, absolutely. You just think about mobile payments. I mean, the volumes are astronomical.
Right. And to support that kind of activity, the underlying banking infrastructure, it needs to be more than just strong. It has to be incredibly flexible, built for just immense capacity.
Makes sense. And for you, our listener, the learner, our goal here is to give you a clear, insightful look at this complex shift, but, without drowning you in super technical jargon.
So let's dive in. What are the main things pushing this evolution, these core banking systems in China? It's not just one thing.
No, it seems like a few big factors are converging. You mentioned the transaction volumes, right? From WeChat Pay, Alipay.
That's a huge one. Legacy systems, they just weren't built for that kind of internet scale performance.
It's like, trying to fit a highway's worth of traffic onto a small side street. So what else is pushing this change?
Well, there's a really broad wave of digital transformation efforts across pretty much all Chinese banks. They know a modern core is fundamental for offering new digital services and just staying competitive.
Okay, so internal bank strategy.
Yes, and then there's a major government push for technological independence. You often hear the term Xinchuang.
Xinchuang, right. So that's about moving away from reliance on, say, foreign mainframes or databases.
Precisely. It's a strategic drive. China's not just upgrading, it's aiming for self-reliance in this absolutely critical sector, which, has potential geopolitical implications too.
That's a really important context. It's modernization and self-sufficiency. Does the fintech scene play into this as well? It's so dynamic over there.
Undeniably. The fintech ecosystem kind of creates the demand, needing things like open banking capabilities, so different services can talk to each other smoothly.
Ah, okay. So the fintechs need the banks to have modern systems to connect to.
Exactly. And they benefit from it too. Plus, you've got the rise of AI. Banks want to embed intelligence into operations. Think fraud detection, better customer insights.
And you need a modern core system to really handle and process all that data effectively for AI.
You do. And finally, we can't forget the introduction of the digital currency, the eCNY.
Right, the digital yuan. That must require some fundamental changes at the core level.
It does. Systems need to handle this digital form of currency, integrate with the central bank's setup. It's a big architectural consideration.
Okay, so those are some powerful drivers. Let's pivot to the companies actually building these new systems. Who are the key domestic vendors leading the charge?
Right, let's start with Sunline. Shenzhen Sunline Tech. They were real pioneers, actually. Around 2010, they broke away from the old COBOL mainframe tradition by using Java for core banking in China.
Java back in 2010, that was quite early for core system.
It was. And their current solutions are very much cloud native, increasingly using AI as well.
And who are they working with? Any big names?
Yeah, some significant ones. WeBank, China's first all-digital bank. Also Ping An Bank, Bank of Nanjing, Bank of Dongguan.
WeBank is interesting. That must have required massive scale right from the outset.
Absolutely. And that's a key point about Sunline. Hyperscale performance. Their systems for WeBank were designed for, get this, a 500 million customer capacity.
Wow. 500 million customers. That just highlights, as you said, the sheer scale difference in China's digital market. How do they technically achieve that?
They use a fully distributed architecture. It's often described using terms like microservices plus unitized design.
Okay, break that down a bit. Microservices. Like small, independent components.
Sort of. Think of it like building with advanced Lego bricks instead of one big block. You can scale up or swap out individual pieces easily. It gives you almost unlimited scalability and much better resilience.
So if one part has an issue, it doesn't take down the whole system.
That's the idea. And they showed flexibility, too. Famously swapped out an Oracle database for MySQL at WeBank in just a week.
1 week for a core database migration. That's impressive.
Yeah, it really is. They also offer a lot of APIs for integration, connecting to hundreds of other banking systems, and they partner closely with Huawei on the infrastructure side.
Okay, so they build the software. Huawei often provides the underlying tech platform.
Often, yes. Strong partnerships are key. Now, actually getting these new systems into banks, that's another challenge. How do they approach migration?
Yeah, ripping out the old core sounds risky.
Sunline generally pushes for a phased approach. So you run the new core and the old legacy core side by side for a while.
Parallel running.
Exactly. And they use a pretty sophisticated platform to manage the transition of transactions, aiming for a seamless handover, no lost data.
Have they proven this works?
Yes, we've seen case studies like WeBank, which was that first distributed core. Also, Zhangjiagang Rural Commercial Bank. They were the first to run a core on a fully domestic distributed database. And Bank of Dongguan using their latest microservice unitized core.
Okay, Sunline early mover, Java, hyperscale, distributed. Got it. Who's next? Uzis Technologies.
Uzis, right. Also known as Beijing Uzis or Yucheng Tech. They're a really big player, a leading domestic banking IT provider with a huge customer base.
How huge are we talking?
All tiers, really. Central banks, policy banks, the big state-owned commercial banks, joint stock banks down to city and rural banks, even foreign banks operating in China use them.
So very broad reach. What's their offering like?
They offer a new generation, fully distributed core system built on what they call a unified development platform. They really lean on their deep experience over 25 years in banking IT.
That experience must count for a lot with banks.
It does. And for these complex projects, they definitely work with system integrators to get things implemented.
What about their system architecture? Similar principles?
Generally, yes. It's cloud-ready, microservice-based, uses a modular SOA design that's service-oriented architecture, breaking things into services. They also talk about having a business middle platform and a data middle platform.
Middle platforms, what's the idea there?
It's about creating reusable business logic or data services that sit between the core system and the customer-facing channels. Makes it easier to innovate faster without touching the core constantly. Supports distributed deployment, domestic databases, similar themes to Sunline.
And integration, partnerships.
Also similar. API-driven, hundreds of services. They have a strong background in online banking channels already. And yes, interoperability with tech giants like Ant Group's ocean-based database and Huawei's tech stack.
These partnerships with Huawei and Ant Group keep popping up. It seems crucial. How about configuring their system? Can banks easily create new products?
UC's highlights what they call intelligent parameter management and a financial product factory. The goal is rapid product creation, mostly through configuration, setting parameters, rather than writing lots of new code.
Less coding, faster time to market.
That's the promise. Component reuse, a big rule engine for customization. And their ties with Huawei, Ant Group, even Baidu, help integrate things like AI, cloud, and database tech.
Any standout projects for uses?
They've done significant work with China Construction Bank, CCB, one of the giants. And interestingly, they handled a core banking project for a multinational bank's branches in Hong Kong and other overseas locations.
So they're competing internationally too. Okay. Let's move to DCIT's, Digital China Information Service, or Shenzhou Info. They sound like a real heavyweight.
They are. Long-standing player. Reports claim they held the #1 market share for 11 years straight up to 2022.
11 years. That's dominance. What's their main product?
It's called Scimitar Ensemble, a distributed core system built on their Osm and Ordite Galaxy platform. They're known for robust engineering, lots of parameterization options, and a really strong focus on independence from foreign tech.
Fits that Sichuan theme again.
Exactly. And like UC's, they work closely with system integrators for the actual implementations. Companies like Inspur and Chinasoft International are common partners.
What makes Summa at Tur Ensemble's architecture distinct?
It's fully distributed, like the others, but they talk about a dual-core architecture.
Dual core. What does that mean in this context?
It seems to be about separating the ledger, the record-keeping, from the transaction processing. Imagine two engines working together, one focused purely on accuracy, the other on speed.
Interesting. Sort of specialization within the core.
Seems like it. They also emphasize modularity, describing it like Lego bricks you can combine freely. Supports cloud, and they make a point about avoiding vendor lock-in.
That no vendor lock-in must be music to a bank CIO's ears. How does it play with other systems? Integration.
Designed to be very integration-friendly. They use standard financial interfaces, often supply their own integration middleware, and they've proven they can connect to hundreds of peripheral systems.
And customization.
Again, lots of parameterization, product factory approach. They also have something called the Model B at NINC development framework for deeper customization, if needed.
With that market share history, their client list must be long.
Oh, yeah. Over 100 bank core projects, Major state-owned banks like Agricultural Development Bank of China, China Everbright, China Guangfa, plus tons of city and rural banks.
Okay. A real established leader.
Yeah.
Now, Forms Syntron, they seem a bit newer and maybe just known for their Huawei partnership.
Yeah, they've definitely emerged as a significant vendor, and that Huawei partnership is central. Their main product is FinCube, a digital banking core. It's an open banking platform, distributed architecture, co-developed with Huawei.
Open banking platform. What's the focus there?
They talk a lot about Bank 4.0 solutions, meaning agile, very customer experience focused. Again, they often partner with SIs for the rollout.
Bank 4.0. Sounds very forward-looking. What's under the hood of FinCube?
Fully modern, cloud native. Uses containerized microservices. Their framework is called SOLAP, running on Huawei's Universe PaaS. PaaS is platform as a service.
Right, so Huawei provides the platform, Forms Syntron's application runs on top.
Exactly. And they boast a huge library, thousands of microservices in their BaaS, or banking as a service, library. They call it a Lego open banking solution.
Thousands of microservices. That's very granular. How does it perform?
Engineered for distributed high concurrency work. Leverages Huawei's Fusion Cube infrastructure, which is designed for high performance.
And connectivity, given the open banking name.
Big focus on open APIs for easy connection to fintechs, multi-channel integration. That deep Huawei partnership helps on the infrastructure side, and they even work with Microsoft for some AI capabilities.
Interesting. Bringing Microsoft into the mix, too. How configurable is it?
Uses microservice composition assembling services, and they aim for zero-code configuration for product design. Plus, you can add new microservices independently.
Any key references for Forms Syntron?
Their work with Huawei and China Merchants Bank on open banking is notable. They were involved early on with WeBank's tech, too. And they helped launch Fusion Bank, a virtual bank in Hong Kong.
Okay, another strong contender, especially linked with Huawei. Lastly, Ping An One Connect. That's the fintech arm of the giant Ping An group, right?
That's them. They offer a cloud-native core platform called One Cosmo. It seems particularly aimed at digital banks and maybe smaller institutions.
So born in the cloud, essentially.
Very much so. It's AI-driven, uses big data, and it's delivered via Ping An's own financial cloud. The emphasis is all on cloud, open APIs, intelligent operations, fast product launches.
And do they handle integration themselves, or?
They work with his SIs too, but often they can leverage Ping An technology, another part of the group, for integration muscle.
Makes sense to use internal capabilities. What's the architecture?
Inherently cloud native, microservices again. API first designed, they list over 300 basic APIs. They have an intelligent parameter operation system, and it's multi-tenant capable, meaning multiple banks could potentially run on the same instance securely.
Designed for efficiency, how's the performance?
Built for much higher throughput than legacy systems. And being on Ping An's cloud gives it elastic scalability. It can grow or shrink resources as needed.
And integration being cloud native.
Absolutely key. Hundreds of RESTful APIs for smooth connection to external apps and other One Connect modules. Configuration is meant to be rapid via that intelligent parameter system and a product factory mindset.
Who's using One Cosmo?
Shenzhen Rural Commercial Bank's digital transformation is a key example. Lots of city and rural banks too. They also power One Connect Bank, PAOB, in Hong Kong, their own digital bank there, and they're expanding internationally into Southeast Asia.
Right, so they're taking this model beyond China as well. Okay, that gives us a great overview of the main vendors. But building these systems is one thing. Implementing them sounds like a massive undertaking. This is where system integrators, SIs, come in.
Absolutely critical. You can't overstate their role. These are huge, complex projects. SIs bring the essential implementation capacity, the local market knowledge, and, crucially, the expertise in integrating the new core with everything else a bank uses.
And who are the big SIs in this space in China?
You've got major domestic players like Newsoft, Chinasoft International, Inspur, DCI itself actually has a large integration arm, Hunsun, and then global firms are active too, like IBM Global Services, Accenture, Deloitte.
So it's a mix of local and international expertise. How do the vendors and SIs typically work together on, say, a big core replacement project?
It's usually very collaborative. The vendor provides the core software, right, and the deep technical knowledge about their specific platform. The SI then takes on a lot of the project management, the customization needed for that specific bank, and that huge task of integration.
Integrating with potentially hundreds of other systems you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Customer databases, payment gateways, risk management tools, reporting systems. It's a complex web. They often set up joint project teams, work very closely together day to day.
How do they manage that integration complexity? Just connecting everything must be a nightmare.
They often use an integration layer, sometimes an enterprise service bus, an ESB for VEN. Think of it as a central hub managing communication traffic. Or maybe an API gateway, which acts like a controlled front door for systems to talk to each other.
So a middle layer to orchestrate the communication.
Pretty much. The SI is usually responsible for setting this up, making sure data flows correctly between the shiny new core and all the older systems. Sometimes they use special transitional platforms during the migration phase as well to bridge the old and new worlds.
And what about the data itself? Moving decades of customer and transaction data, that sounds incredibly risky.
It is. Data migration is a huge part of the SI's job, working with the vendor. They have to figure out how to map data from the old format to the new, extract it, transform it, load it into the new core.
And check meticulously that nothing got lost or scrambled?
Precisely. Rigorous reconciliation processes are key to make sure everything matches up perfectly before the final switchover.
And testing must be absolutely paramount. You mess up banking transactions, and it's catastrophic.
Couldn't be more critical.
Yeah.
Usually, the vendor and SI form joint testing teams. The vendor might focus more on their core systems functions, while the SI, often with the bank's own IT people, drives the integration testing, making sure everything works together.
And performance testing, too, I assume, making sure it can handle peak loads.
Oh, definitely. Stress testing, performance testing, user acceptance testing, making sure it actually does what the bank's business users needed to do. It's exhaustive.
So who's ultimately in charge of making sure these massive multi-year projects actually succeed?
Often, especially for larger banks, you see a prime integrator model. One company, frequently a major SI, but sometimes even a vendor, if they have strong integration capabilities, takes overall responsibility for delivering the whole thing.
One throat to choke, so to speak.
Kinda, yeah. They manage the project governance, define roles, make sure everyone sticks to the plan. Co-locating teams, having vendor, SI, and bank staff working physically together is also common to speed up communication and problem solving.
It really sounds like a whole ecosystem has developed around these transformations, focused on managing the complexity and risk.
It really has. There's a lot of experience now, established partnerships. You see patterns like Huawei working frequently with Sunline, UC's Form Syntron, or SIs like Newsoft often integrating UC systems. It leads to, hopefully, smoother projects.
Okay, that clarifies the how. So zooming back out, what are the main market trends we're seeing overall in China's core banking modernization?
Well, first, there's just a clear acceleration. More and more banks across all tiers are kicking off these modernization projects. It's not just the early adopters anymore.
The momentum is building.
Definitely. Second, the preferred approach seems to be phased legacy replacement. Big bang migrations are seen as too risky.
Makes sense. Slow and steady, or at least step by step.
Exactly. Architecturally, the dominant trend is the move to distributed cloud-native platforms. That's a huge shift away from the old mainframes.
And within that, are there other architectural patterns emerging?
Yes, we're seeing more decoupling of services. The idea of a thin core keeping the absolute essential core banking functions lean and handling other things with microservices or those middle platforms we mentioned, it aims for more agility.
So the core does less, but does it really well, and other bits are more flexible.
That's the concept. And that Xinchuan push for local tech is still a massive factor.
Right, the drive for technological independence. That must heavily favor the domestic vendors we discuss.
Hugely. It's reshaping the competitive landscape, pushing adoption of local hardware and software throughout the financial sector.
And the influence of giants like WeChat and Alipay, how does that play out at the core system level?
Immense pressure. It drives the need for open APIs, incredibly high performance, 24/7 availability. The core systems have to be able to integrate seamlessly with these super apps and the wider fintech world.
So the ecosystem dictates core system requirements to some extent. What about AI and data?
It's moving beyond just talk. We're seeing real integration of AI and analytics into core banking. For smarter risk management, deeper customer understanding, automating processes, you could almost talk about intelligent cores emerging.
Intelligent cores, I like that. And regulation, the digital currency.
Both are major drivers, too. Regulators demand more granular data, better reporting, which often requires newer systems. And the ECNY, the digital currency, necessitates fundamental changes to handle digital sovereign money.
Okay. And overall, the market itself.
It's dynamic, competitive, but also increasingly collaborative between the vendors and the SIs as everyone tackles this modernization wave. Really, core modernization is now a central pillar of almost every Chinese bank's digital transformation strategy.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. As we wrap up this deep dive, it seems clear we've looked at a really rapid, comprehensive modernization of China's core banking. It's driven by this unique mix of market forces, technology leaps, and strategic government direction.
Absolutely. We've seen this profound shift, haven't we? Away from the old monolithic systems towards these distributed cloud-native platforms that offer just incredible speed, scale, and resilience.
And it's really striking how innovative and adaptable the domestic Chinese vendors, Sunline, UCs, DCITs, Forms, Syntron, OneConnect have been. They're meeting the very specific, very demanding needs of that unique market.
They really are rising to the challenge. And we also highlighted the absolutely crucial role of the system integrators in actually making these incredibly complex projects happen successfully on the ground.
Right. So here's maybe the final thought for you, our listener. Think about how these trends playing out in China. This relentless push for speed, the need for massive scale, that strategic drive for tech independence. How might that echo or influence similar changes elsewhere?
Yeah, in other regions that are facing their own digital pressures, their own modernization needs, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? What does this mean for banks, for tech providers globally?
It really does. It raises that question for you. How might what's happening in China's core banking sector foreshadow the future of banking infrastructure, maybe even in your own part of the world?
Indeed. It's definitely a space to keep a close eye on. A lot happening and happening fast.